Good brands sometimes fail. You could have a great product, the sincerest of intentions, and a formidable marketing budget, and yet it could all fall short. There's one key factor entrepreneurs sometimes miss when branding, and this one key factor can make all the difference. Today, we'll find out what that is. The key reason good brands fail, and how not to go down that path. Hey everyone, it's Canon Wing from Inspiration to Millions. And we're here to answer the foremost question on every entrepreneur's mind, how to come out of nowhere. Many entrepreneur clients come to me in the early stages of their enterprise, while they're naming their brand, brainstorming the tagline, and defining what it stands for. And each of them hopes that I will give them some magic success formula. You know, that one trick that can take their brand from the new in the market to the come out of nowhere successful. Oh my God, wow, that brand's blowing my mind. A kind of key to long-lasting brand loyalty. And you might be surprised to hear this, but I do have such a trick for them. A key ingredient in their branding formula that can make all the difference to how their brand is received and perceived, in fact, is the absence of this key element, while branding can make even the best products fail eventually. It's simpler than you might imagine. So, if you're just starting out on this episode with me, we're going to teach you the exact mindset that will help your brand take your market by storm. The key reason your brand could die in spite of a great product? Okay, let's say you've designed this amazing product that works super well and caters to a genuine need in the market. It does what's expected to do and more. Is that enough? A number of good products fail due to incorrect branding. Why is this? When everything about the product is fantastic, what makes the brand fail? And more importantly, what can you do to avoid these pitfalls and make sure your brand doesn't meet an untimely, undeserved demise? Let's get right to it. The one key reason why even good brands fail is because they think more about themselves and less about their ideal individuals. Let me explain. Branding should never be a dictation. It can never be a one-sided communication. It needs to be a conversation, a dialogue, an interaction. Remember that old adage about the best conversationalists being the ones that listen? Connect with your ideal individuals, interact with them, figure out ways to make their lives better than they are today, figure out ways to help them walk into a greater future. You might think this is an element that's very obvious, but it is in fact rather elusive. Major companies have lost millions of dollars because of how common it is to skip this important step. Some brands are born doomed to failure. Remember Cosmopolitan yogurt? It's alright if you don't. In 1999, the hugely successful magazine decided to launch a yogurt brand. The brand failed for several reasons. One, people weren't quite sure why would they buy yogurt from the same people who gave them how-to tips, told them about which colors to wear in the fall and how to drive your partner wild with desire. It was quite simply too incongruous. Cosmopolitan thought that yogurt in the bedroom would turn into a fetish, but their ideal audience didn't quite think that way. The yogurt lasted all of 18 months on the supermarket shelves before it was withdrawn completely, leaving a lot of higher-ups at Cosmopolitan quite embarrassed. The concept was flawed, and the Cosmo readers wanted to read a magazine, not eat Cosmo yogurt in bed. Learn from this engineering marvel branding disaster. Another classic case in point here, a one trailblazing automobile, an engineering marvel by Tata Motors, an Indian car manufacturer. CEO Ratan Tata made it his dream project to create a car that everyone could afford. It's a beautiful sentiment. The Nano would be the cheapest car in the whole world, a car for first-time car buyers across the globe, costing less than $2,000. It was a noble thought, with an established, highly respectable brand like Tata behind it. A lot of effort went into engineering a good, small car with a low price point. Can you imagine the effort? And it did turn out to be an engineering marvel. Unfortunately, what it also turned out to be was a branding disaster. So much so that the commonly featured in case studies on how not to do branding features this lesson. Let me tell you more about where the company went grossly wrong. Their brand story. The story was about people of modest means, people able to afford only a moped, who could now afford a car. How everyone, everywhere, even poor people, can now be the proud owner of a car because it's just that cheap. That was the brand story. That was the noble thought. The product was good. The effort was sincere. The key factor they missed was listening. Keying into their ideal individual's thought process, their aspirations. Tata branded for what they thought the consumer needed, as opposed to listening to the consumer and branding according to what they really desired. So here's an engineering marvel, a product people could afford that fulfilled a specific need in the market. So why was it also a product that consumers rejected? In a product segment like a car, where a big and flashy features, loaded, we hear that phrase, loaded. These are desirable elements. The Nano felt too modest, too cheap, and not hip enough. And then the story, telling the story of a poor man's car, proved disastrous because no one wanted to feel poor. Owning a Nano came to be associated with lack of money. Tata thought people wanted an affordable car, so they would all drive. People wanted an affordable car, but one that made them feel good about themselves, one that made them the hero of their own life, not one that made them feel inadequate, one that showed everybody they were poor. People want to buy cars that others would envy, not mock. Buying a Nano made one look as though this was all they could afford. The company thought that consumers were utilitarian, whereas the consumers were actually aspirational. By their very nature, they wanted to impress, buy things their friends and families would admire and be in awe of. Nano didn't tick any of those boxes. And a young first-time buyer, their target consumers preferred a hip $1,000 motorbike to a cheap $2,000 car. People want status-enhancing cars. And this was the exact opposite of their brand story. Even the poor aspired to live like the rich. So they refused to drive the car that reminded them of their limited means. The car failed every branding test. Export demand dropped drastically. What started as a legendary businessman's dream project ended up costing the company over, it's going to hurt to say, $160 million in losses. What could have taken the market by storm, redefined the auto industry across the world, became a threat to other car manufacturers. None of this happened. It was reduced to a failure, a mockery, and the subject of countless memes. Just 275 units of the Nano were produced in 2017, and only one in 2018. That's right, one single car in the nation populated, in a population of over 1.3 billion in India. That's how disastrously low the demand plummeted. The company has now announced plans to shut down manufacturing of the Nano car entirely. And that spells the demise of a great product and one that people needed but didn't want. It was a classic case of breakthrough engineering brought down by disastrous branding. If only the company had listened to their ideal individuals and actually heard what they were saying. If only they had understood their real desires, their wants, their needs, their aspirations. If only they had branded the Nano as the smart car instead of the cheap car. If only they had proposed it as your dream come true instead of an affordable thing for the common man. They could have done any number of things if only they had listened. If only they had branded for what the consumer really wanted, instead of branding for what they thought the consumer should want. They did the thinking from their own point of view. They didn't think from the point of view of their ideal individuals. And maybe they didn't have all that important conversation that's needed to have a great brand. The best listeners win the long game. In the words of Scott Cook, a brand is no longer what we tell the consumer it is. It is what the consumer tells each other it is. People might forget your brand name, your brand story. People might forget your latest social media post or what your website looks like. What people won't forget is how your brand makes them feel. In the case of the Nano, just not good enough. And the only way to make them feel good about themselves while being a part of your brand family is by listening to them, understanding what they need, where they stand, and meeting them right there, right where they are right now, and guiding them gently into their greater future. For any successful brand, you don't brand according to what you think they want or need. You brand according to how they want to feel, the emotion that they're buying for you, how they need to feel. It's a subtle shift in mindset. And it seems very obvious now that I've laid it out, right? But it's amazing how many entrepreneurs fail at incorporating this key element into their branding process. You must remember what it was like to be a beginner, even if you've come so far along your journey and you're an expert in your field now, ready to share your wisdom. Your ideal individuals will be at a different point in their journey compared to you. Why else would they need you? Why else would they listen to you? Why else would they buy from you? So it's really about listening and about being honest with yourself about where they are and what they want. Your ideal individuals are walking around looking for validation for themselves, just like we all are. So when you're the provider, you need to break the habit of only thinking about yourself from your own point of view, because you're walking around the earth buying things that make you feel good about your aspiration. Now you're the provider. So don't brand for what your likes are. Don't brand for your need or what you want. Brand for your ideal individuals, where they stand, and brand from their perspective. Your ideal individuals can grow with you and meet you halfway over time. But entrepreneurs must meet them where they are right now. Speak to your ideal individuals in their language to find out what's in their heart. Do this today. Catch a friend or a random stranger. Ask them to tell you about their honest opinion about your brand. Get your finger on the pulse of public opinion. If you're on a website that has reviews, read them. Listen to what they have to say about your brand and about how they perceive it. Does their perception match yours? Does it align with what you intended? If it doesn't, it's because you're not listening. You're not on the same frequency as them. To make your brand hit the right chords, listen to the music of your ideal individuals. They are playing you a song figuratively, but literally too. Literally listen to what they have to say and redesign your brand to align with what they need and want, not what you want them to need and want. Do this and come out of nowhere and be an inspiration to millions. Thank you for joining me today in this episode. And before I say goodbye, let me leave you this one last thought. Good branding makes you look good, but great branding makes your ideal individuals feel good. And consumers that feel good about being a part of your brand are the ones that will stay with you forever. Strive to inspire brand loyalty. And to do that, always love what you do and love how you do it. Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on a single thing. Subscribe below. And here's something else I think you'll love.